Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. With this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 19 of the anime series Ushio to Tora, and this one definitely took like a hell of a left turn, introducing time travel to the entire affair. And I mean, it almost felt like a completely different show for a little while there, almost feeling as though it was straying away from the overarching plot of going after Hakumen no Mono and all this stuff, where we left off, essentially with Ushio and Tora going into this cave and everything like that, and meeting, for all intents and purposes, Tokisaka, this yokai that spirits them back in time. And I was a little, like, sort of confused, and it was a little muddled what kind of time travel we were talking about here, because at first they're talking like 850 years ago, then it's 2200 years back, and then it's 500 years previous to that, you know, that Hakumen no Mono's been around the last time he was terrassing around China and all this kind of stuff, and a year previous to that is the return of Hakumen no Mono and all this kind of stuff. And apparently it's been wreaking havoc with the you know, king in China or whatever it is. He's very superstitious. He has killed 80 of his own concubines because, as far as he's concerned, he's aware of one of these women being possessed by the spirit, or being the spirit incarnate of Hakumen no Mono and all that kind of stuff. So very much are we getting that much closer in reality with this time travel effect to the heart of the matter. And the entire time Ushio, you know, he runs smack dab into Jime when she was still a young woman, and her father was, you know, at one time he was considered to be a high priest and, you know, sort of swordsmith within the kingdom, but because of an extended family member trying to assassinate the king, oh, good doings there, they're banished, and he's thinking he can make recompense if he creates a divine sword, as they're referring to it, you know, a lot of sword and spear-like weapons to try to take Hakumen no Mono down. And it's insane how this all ends up playing out. I thought it was great how we parallel, you know, like Jime, she very much looks like Inoue, which is something that goes all the way back to the start of the series. There was a familiarity there, and tiptoeing around that idea that maybe Inoue was somehow involved. Maybe there's some kind of kinship or you know, familial link between Ushio and her lineage or something along those lines. And it very much answers, sort of before the time travel actually comes into play, it very much answers one of my own speculations that perhaps Ushio's mother is meant to be containing Hakumen no Mono within a barrier, not to protect him like the yokai think. But as we see Jime, you know, she basically at an older stage of her life, but still very much in the past from where Ushio and Tora are, you know, all of the events are unfolding for them. She was integral in keeping Hakumen no Mono at bay by erecting a powerful sort of barrier to keep him contained. And so that very much answers the speculation that I had, that maybe that's what, you know, Ushio's mother's involvement is. And if that, you know, he's tied up with that lineage, that has to be that there is sort of an extended familial link between him and Inoue in that sort of way, unless it's just coincidence that, you know, she just happens to look like Jime and everything, which still, you know, remains to be seen, but it's possible. What do we see, you know, as he's spending time, and also I thought it was hilarious that she's calling him by the wrong name. He writes out his own name, and she's like calling him Sung Yu instead of Ushio, Aotsuki, and everything like that. And I'm wondering if there's something along the lines of, you know, sort of if you call back to a classic Star Trek episode where they time travel back and they become intertwined with events, and then they sort of become part of history. I'm wondering if something along those lines is happening with Ushio here, where he's been spirited back in time, and he's going to actually play an integral role in the events of this time period leading up to where everything stands in, you know, sort of the modern timeline. I mean, he's flipping around more so than a blue police box, Doctor Who reference over here, or flying DeLorean. And I'm just wondering how closely knit into the events he's going to become, because it seems like as we leave off this episode, you have the debut, you know, of all these people coming in, swelling into the kingdom to show off their swords and their spears and everything, hoping that one of them will be able to topple Hakumen no Mono's hold over the king and the kingdom and the world at large if he's let loose, if he's set free. And all the while, as you have this king cowering behind his, like, one sort of, you know, house speaker, if you will, and Ushio and Tora have both respectively gone into the kingdom with Jime, her family, her father, her mother, the mother's hair being integral into the, sort of construction of this modern spear that they've made. And you're wondering the whole time, is this actually the same spear or not? Because we see that the brother's spirit is contained within the beast spear as Ushio knows it, so it can't very well be the final product that would, centuries later, hundreds and hundreds of years later, fall into Ushio's hands. But the brother, Giryu, he's there as well, and it's just like all of a sudden everything completely goes ape mode when you have the debut of Helena Bonham Carter over here, the sort of female physical equivalent of Hakuma no Mono, suddenly Hakuma no Monoing out, like completely becoming beast mode and looking like a giant sort of white, albino ferret with 60 tails. All of these concubines have been completely wiped out, and it's unleashing holy hell. And then you have that freeze frame as Ushio grabs a weapon and starts charging, because at this point both the father and the mother have been wiped out, and Jime and Giryu are there just to look on in horror. Sheer contempt and horror and madness. This is what fuels the very madness that goes into Giryu's creating the beast spear Ushio will one day wield. And you have that freeze frame recognition of Hakuma no Mono's eye becoming very sort of stained glass and broken glass effect, much like Ushio's were when he was consumed by the power of the beast spear and turned into a beast himself. And it's looking pointedly at Ushio, like that's going to be a memory that's never going away. It's going to stay in the mind of Hakuma no Mono. It's going to see Ushio coming in the modern sense, and it's like, whoa. I was kind of like the whole first half of the episode, I'm just like, okay, well, where are we going with all of this? This is very interesting. It was all highly intriguing, but I didn't know, like I say, it almost felt like they were straying away from the heart of the matter. And yet by the end do we find it's right there smack dab on the nose with the heart of the whole story arc with Hakuma no Mono, and seeing the representative sort of form and function of what Hakuma no Mono is in this ancient sense. And then we're talking about, how it was split up in all these different pieces, and you have all these protectoral women who have been keeping them contained, just waiting those centuries for the beast spear to awaken. It was holed up, keeping Tora pinned down for 300, 800 years, whatever it was. I don't remember anymore, with all the timey-wiminess, again, Doctor Who reference, in this episode where it was kind of muddled. I couldn't quite follow where we were in the timeline, except to say that this was so many hundreds of years earlier. But I mean, it completely blew my frickin' mind by the end, how right on the nose, right at the heart of the matter it got. And seeing Jime and getting familiar with her family and getting familiar, to a point with the brother, because Ushio, he sees him and immediately he's struck aback by, this isn't the same sort of guy I saw within that vision, within that, when I was contained within the beast spirit, when I was at its command, effectively. And we see this bloodthirsty psycho equivalent of Giryu. It's very interesting to me that he was very sort of happy-go-lucky, and he was out studying, trying to find a way to create a divine weapon that could take down Hakuma no Mono. And as soon as you have whispers of Hakuma no Mono being in the area, all hell breaks loose, and they go nth degree mode to create this weapon. And it's shattered in moments. Hakuma no Mono is at full mast at this point, and it's just absolutely insane. I almost have to wonder if it's going to be this moment where Ushio, again, calling into how integral he is to the timeline of the past, I have to wonder if his attack on Hakuma no Mono is going to be what compels the yokai spirit of Hakuma no Mono to split all those dozens of ways and everything like that, so that where we were at the start of the episode, you have sort of one chunk of Hakuma no Mono in the cave Ushio and Tora go into, and then there is somewhere out there the hub Hakuma no Mono still in hiding, and presumably if Ushio gets back on the path to finding his mother, he'll be led right to it, And I just can't wait to see as we go in the next episode, as the events of this time period, this past time period unfold, if he is actually going to play that heavy a role in the history of this whole event. He's tied to it in the modern sense, in the modern timeline, but he's just as seemingly tied to it in the past now. And I'm going to be interested to see whether it's through his own, wanting to be involved through his own reacting to the situation and trying to take Hakumen no Mono down in the past, and thus inevitably, making himself a part of those events. Or if it was always ordained to be that way, that, the flow of time, it always had to be like this, and it's sort of, a predestination paradox, where he was meant to go back in time and, flail a weapon around, kick Hakumen no Mono's ass and break him up into smaller pieces, so when he comes back to the future, no Doc Brown helping him out this time, but he'll face a sort of lesser equivalent of Hakumen no Mono, a weakened equivalent, because of this past, sort of involvement. I don't know. It just has me uber excited. Like, I didn't know where it was going. And then when this happened, when this played out, and I was on the edge of my seat, I was gobsmacked by Jime's family, again, her father and mother being destroyed, and all these people, all these innocent lives being wasted at the hands of Hakumen no Mono. And Ushio being right there, hundreds of years earlier than where he's supposed to be fighting Hakumen no Mono. It would be mind-blowing if somehow, it played out in the past like that. Like, he defeats Hakumen no Mono, but only for a time. Then he's got to come back to modern era and do it all over again, So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of Ushio to Tora episode 19. If you've seen it, if you enjoyed it as much as I did, if you found it kind of flummoxing at first like I did, like, where are they going with this? And then all of a sudden everything gets right back to the core of Hakumen no Mono and that chase, and Ushio just being badass, all kinds of certified badass, with Tora being right there, and for all intents and purposes Tora was like completely almost invisible, like nobody can see him, nobody's interacting with him, everything like that. I think they'd probably all be freaked out and want to be on the attack against Ushio if they did. But yeah, just let me know in the comments below if you were as stoked as I was for this episode, and at least by the end, as I say, and bring on the next one. Man, holy crap. So yeah, otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.